Welcome back to the 1904 Club. On the back of Hull City's tremendous 2-0 win at Carrow Road, something we've not been able to say ever on this podcast because we've not been going for 15 years, but a special weekend for the Tigers. To look back on that and then look ahead to a trip to Pride Park on Tuesday night. Kathryn has torn herself away from the infighting within the England camp and the ex-England camp with Earps and well, it's mainly Mary Earps, isn't it? Really, it's not Hannah Hampton's not saying anything, Kathryn.
No, it's Mary Earps Central at the minute, so it's quite nice to get away and talk about something much more enjoyable, which is Hull City's fantastic form. And I said to Burnsy last week, I said if I mention the fact we've not won at Norwich for ages, it'll have the reverse effect and we'll win. So there we go, it happened.
And Burnsy, we were at Carrow Road on Saturday. Chaotic scenes at the end of the game when all the home fans were protesting. There were sit-down protests and all sorts. But that's not something we need to worry about. Hull City did a job on them, didn't they?
Did, though, in fairness to Norwich and in fair reflection of, and I think the managers had acknowledged it, Norwich could have been out of sight at half-time if they'd taken the chances. They had 3 or 4 good chances. City were very lacklustre in that first half, but credit to the manager, he changed it round, he changed the shape, made a difference, and City could have scored more than 2 in the second half. So a big win. They're going really well, and I know we'll discuss, because there's a tweet out there, whether the genuine playoff contenders, but very satisfactory second 45. I must say, I thought, because I think I said last week that they've got to go for it. They've really got to go for it from the start, and I was very impressed with the kickoff. Gelhardt rolls it back to Egan, and he has a go from inside his own half, and I thought, it's going to be a rip-roaring afternoon, and it never quite happened in the first half. But anyway, they got there in the end and they won 2-0. I'll shut up now and let you introduce Prutts.
Yeah, all the talk in the media room before the game, apart from City's awful record at Carrow Road and how we were trying to convince ourselves, like using reverse psychology, that Norwich were going to win the game again, and it did work, was about Prutton's sharp new hairstyle that was on the telly. That was literally the conversation amongst the media Hull City media call. What has he done? What's that? Is that Prutts?
It looks way shorter on screen than it does in real life. Not that any of you need to come and see me in real life. I don't know, but you're probably watching a midlife crisis in real time, so enjoy it. I think it'll be soon to be found sat in a lay-by in my pajamas watching old clips from the early Premier League years of where it all went wrong. But it's been a cracking weekend, hasn't it? I'm intrigued to see what comes of the Earp story. So Kathryn gave us some nice insight just before we start recording, which is good. I'll take it to the grave. But from City's point of view, I saw that clipped up, Burnsy, from the kickoff. I didn't realise it was literally from the first. I thought it was at the start of the second half. That was literally how City started. That's amazing.
Yeah,
old school. No.
I just thought, they're going to really be on the front foot, which is what it needed for me, because Norwich, their confidence is shot. It's a strange atmosphere there at Carrow Road. And I thought they're really going to go for it, but they never got going. And credit to Norwich, they created stuff. They looked all right. Just they couldn't take the chances, and then in the second half they fell away, and it all went very toxic for them. But we will talk about City and where they are and where they're going and all sorts.
Prutts, on your midlife crisis, maybe you might drive to Dundee barefooted.
I was going to start that, but then I thought it was too obvious a partridge, Nick. That's more your wheelhouse, isn't it? Taking that full ball.
I mean, given we've been to Norfolk and I managed to get out of Carrow Road without having a cow hurled at me from some angry farmers.
Well, I mean, that's probably what the players got, the Norwich players, didn't they? Because I mean, that place is. We were looking at the stats as well, and we spoke to Sergei before. It was great, and again, it never fails to impress nor charm you. We were, in the sense of what our show was doing and speaking to different managers, we were running a little bit late, and we'd already got word that he needed to get out and away for his team talk. So it was great, and didn't just throw his headset off and walk off. Waited to chat to us, and he was brilliant. And he's doing such a good job. And I think even as well, because he mentioned working within the bounds of the injuries that City have had and are coping with. I said to him, I thought it'd be a real test of the team. And going back to statistically, yes, there might be parts of it that Norwich dominated, but as ever in the Championship, and I always find the time to say this when we look at match facts and stuff, you come out away as a player and you might have rode your luck, and I've used that quite as a loose term, but you come away with 3 points and 2 goals. Happy days. Gee whiz, they're doing amazingly well at the moment.
And Kathryn, Burnsy talks about the start, and you did think when Joff rolls it back to Egan, who clips it just over the crossbar, you're thinking that sets the tone for what was going to be a really attack-minded first half. But it went the other way. That was, apart from, I think, a Carl Joseph shot that was blocked after one nice moment, that was it. It was all Norwich. Norwich should have been 2 or 3 up at half-time. And you're kind of thinking, like, I remember looking at the clock 35 minutes in thinking, if we can get to half-time at 0-0, that's a moral victory, and we can't be as bad second half, because that was as bad as City have played, probably even including Bristol City away, because they were really poor. It was just the fact that Sargent forgot his boots and they just missed chances. With
the kickoff, we were just giving them the ball back, I think, and just saying, right, that's yours for 45 minutes, and we'll just try and defend. I hadn't clocked that Jeffrey Schlupp had gone to Norwich, but he absolutely tore us apart in the first half.
No,
yeah, well, no, clearly, and he was, I think, Louis Coyle was struggling, but I don't think he was getting much help. So it was sort of like every single time, right, the ball's gone up to Schlupp again. I sort of like, oh, poor Louis is just having to like defend against him for the whole half. And yeah, I mean, some of the chances they missed. I mean, I did see Liam Manning's comments after the game, which were, I was surprised. I'm surprised they haven't kind of reacted and you know, like Southampton have obviously last night, but I think what he said was some of the worst decision making he's ever seen, or something like that, which feels a bit strong. But the finishing was that bad. I can kind of understand why he's that frustrated. But I think the key was the manager changing it at half time, and I think not necessarily admitting he might have got the setup wrong, but I think it takes a big manager to make a tactical formation change at half time, because quite a few will just give it another 5-10 minutes, see how it's going, and then make a change. But he actually bringing a defender on, which could look, you know, potentially defensive or whatever. But that move into a back five, just bringing Ajayi on, it helped Louis Coyle out so much. I mean, I don't think Schlupp hardly got the ball second half. We were so much more solid, and it changed things completely. And I thought, you know what, fair play to the manager for kind of recognising where it's going wrong, making the right change, and then it was a completely different game second half.
Burnsy, the gaffer, said to me at full time that, you know, he looked at the system in the first half, and there were 2 or 3 times in the first half he wanted to change it. Then he did change it, and obviously brought Shemi Ajayi on as well, took off Amir Hodzovic, and it gave City a foothold in the game. But then obviously with Gauhart, it dropped Crooks a bit deeper and getting Gauhart further forward, and he obviously scored the goal 4 minutes into the second half. It changes the complexion of the game entirely, didn't it?
It did. And I just want to read this out from East Old Tiger to the 1904 Club. And just a reminder, you can always send a tweet to the 1904 Club and we'll try and get to it. The East Old Tiger says, really impressed with how quick Sergei has got up to speed with the Championship. Not afraid to change things as seen at Norwich. Refreshing, honest, and doesn't give excuses. Given a healthy squad, see no reason why we couldn't challenge the top half of the division. I'm really impressed with him. Really impressed with him, and with him and the way he goes about it and all that from the East Old Tiger. Is he? Are people noticing him, Prutts, in the wider football world and what he's doing?
Yeah, very much so. I think the way, that element of the unknown that has kind of developed away from is something to be really, really proud of. It's mutually beneficial. You get players, management, staff doing well for a football club, and the football club then develops in itself, and people sit up and take notice. I know it's something that Baz wants to touch on in due course about what we think City are capable of, given where they sit in the division, which I think is phenomenal. But it's about, from a coaching point of view, and Baz and I touched on this. I kept him company for 20 minutes on his way down to Norwich as I was on my way down to London on Saturday morning. But is very evidently a coach that makes players better. And whether that is the real test of that means whether you make that player better in an ongoing sense, or whether there's an instant impact which shoves the level up and then they settle down a little bit, remains to be seen. But the way that there's a real sense of togetherness. We saw that, didn't we, at the Birmingham City game and all the fallout from that. But what you're seeing on the pitch is a team that can express itself, showing resilience, showing a sense of being able to ride out stormy times in a game. And again, I go back to what I said about working within the squad, which has got injuries. Even the players that are coming in look relatively settled, don't they? So that shows that they're getting coached very well on a day-to-day basis. And secondly, that sense of togetherness is something that's affecting the whole side. So when you do come in, when you do get your chance, people like that, get me involved in Sergei's team. I want to stay in it.
Obviously, you had Curtis in the studio and you had Josh Windass as well.
Question, Baz.
Go on. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, to interrupt. The question I was going to ask, because I don't really know him, I only see the evidence of his work and the team and what I'm seeing in the performances. How is he on the training ground? Is he a tracksuit coach, or is he more a stand-back manager and he has a little word here and there? What's his sort of style and method?
He's very much a tracksuit manager, but he can often be on the periphery of training and let his coaching staff take it, but he will interject when he sees fit. If I think back to Liam Rossini, for example, Liam ran the sessions. Liam, we all fans saw images of Liam stood with the ball under his arm or sat on a ball with his whistle in his mouth. Liam would run the sessions. Yeah, Justin Walker would have involvement, as would Andy Dawson. But Liam was front and centre in every session, pretty much. Sergei is a little more old school in many respects. How he lets his coaching staff, be it Salatovic, be it Dean Holden, when Dawes steps in, and other people as well. But he will kind of stand out and watch from the sidelines, and then he will interject when he feels necessary. He will stop, and if he wants to talk to them. But he trusts implicitly his other coaching staff, and his kind of the way he talks about that is, look, if it's the same voice all the time, the players can get bored of it. They can switch off from it, and it becomes very samey. Whereas if he interjects with key bits, obviously he has a key role to play in the analysis, in the tactical approach, but he does lean heavily on his coaching staff.
I think as well the mixture of who he's got with, as you say, the likes of Dean and Dawes, and I'm only coming at that from the point of view of knowing those men and having a lot of time for them. The chemistry seems about right. Going back to Burns' point about Sergei coming in and in real terms not having too much of that experience with what English football and the Championship is about, then you do need those touchstones. And I don't think, I'm not saying it'll, you know what I mean? You see those cliches and where about someone knowing the football club or knowing the division without any real kind of success behind it. I'm not saying that you have those people in for the sake of it, but having spent time with Dawson, I've known Dawson for a very, very long time, and spent time with Dean and seen what he's done and how kind of broadened his footballing experiences, Dean's particularly around the world, then he's come kind of full circle back to East Yorkshire. Not saying he's from there, but in the sense of what he's been able to give the manager, and the manager is being able to give him, it seemingly is working pretty well at the moment, isn't it? Because you've got mixed nationalities on the staff, you've got mixed nationalities on the pitch, you've got an owner who has taken to this pocket of Yorkshire like a duck to water. So that mix at the moment is a wonderful one, isn't it?
Kathryn, before I come to you, Prutts, just going back to the point, obviously you had Curtis in the studio on Saturday, you had Josh, who I know hasn't played for Hull City, but his dad, of course, we all know well, and what have you. What was the feeling there, having seen that the result come through second half? Obviously, you spoke to the gaffer before the game. What was the overriding feeling amongst that kind of core there in studio?
Well, I mean, the cynics in us were along Kathryn's lines of, if you look at it was one win in 13 at Carrow Road, and you're going back to the 70s when you're trying to work out a decent stretch of time when City was successful there. So obviously we're all sat there going, well, Sod's Law says that Norwich are going to win this and they'll get their season up and running, and might be a bit of a reality check for City. But that's belying what you're seeing with your own eyes and what you're feeling at the games. They boxed off the game, obviously, with Joe's finish, and then Darko later on in the game to make sure that it was a relatively enjoyable final few minutes. There wasn't a real element of surprise, I don't think, given what City have done. I think the only real test we thought would be how City get on with the injuries. And again, like I said, the boss had referred to that. But there's just a lot to like about them. And again, it's not. You look at where the two teams are in the division, and if you were someone that had no interest nor insight into the Championship, and you went, "Here's the game this weekend. This is where they both stand," you'd have gone, "Well, that away team is going to beat that home team quite easily from the looks of it." Not quite that in real terms, but they did the job that they should have done, City, and that's when you start discussing potentially where they end up and what their aspirations should be. But we were sat there remotely surprised when the ticker comes in, you see the goals go in to say that Hull City have won by 2-0, because Norwich, for all their possession, the chances that created, they're in a definitely a trough at the moment, and you're struggling to see where they're going to climb out of it anytime soon.
Kathryn, in terms of City's performance, as bad as they were in the first half, they had that resilience, didn't they? We saw at Birmingham a couple of weeks ago, where Birmingham were easily the better side in the first 35 minutes or so. But City have this knack this season, and it's an incredible trait that when they're not at their best, and they do away from home, they do come under the pump, and they have done at home. But they are resilient, and they have got that ability to try and, by hook or by crook, and you need a bit of luck along the way to not fall behind, and then either get through to halftime or in the Birmingham case, get the noses in front. And then obviously, as we know, at any level of football, goals change games. And particularly on Saturday, getting into halftime at 0-0 was so important. And then getting that goal so early in the second half, it just turned the atmosphere. And suddenly what you talked about with what Liam Manning said about the errors that he's never seen before at this level, City were forcing those errors, weren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we said last week that they basically needed to do the opposite of what they did at Watford, where they went in front and then they let Watford come back into the game. And, if Watford had stayed behind, the atmosphere would have changed, completely. And we allowed them to kind of get a result when we probably shouldn't have done. And, at Birmingham, as I say, they did a good job of getting in at half-time ahead and keeping, making sure that atmosphere kind of stayed a little bit flat in the second half. They have absolutely, it screamed, didn't it, in that game when Norwich were missing chance after chance after chance. If you can get into half-time, that their confidence would just drop in the second half, and there was no way they were going to create as many chances in the second half as the first half. And thankfully, obviously, the tactical tweak helped as well. But it just screamed kind of like us taking an early lead in the second half, and that's exactly what happened. And sometimes it doesn't go like that, but you just knew that if they could kind of just stay in the game, they were always going to create a chance at some point. And once they went ahead, there's the Norwich. We knew the atmosphere was going to turn. The tennis ball protest was pathetic. It was literally about 5 tennis balls, so that was a waste of time.
One tube of tennis balls, that wasn't it?
It was like really? Is that it? Is that it? I think the other protests that came afterwards much better, but the tennis ball one, we knew they were a bit split on it, but clearly only 5 people got the memo about that.
The stupid thing about that, Burnsy, about that, if you can call it a protest or whatever it was, Norwich had got some momentum at that moment. They just got a free kick about 20 yards outside the City penalty area, and then that happened, and it kind of gave City time to just pause for breath, reorganise. And then I think the free kick, if I remember it, the free kick came in and it was plugged straight out of play behind Ivor Pandor's goal, and that little bit of pressure had gone. And so actually, as funny as it was, it actually impacted Norwich because it completely broke the momentum they built up.
It was just funny. I didn't realise there was 5. It must have been our angle. There must have been one hidden behind another one. I thought it was only 4. But I don't know whether it was. I don't know whether it was just one bloke coming in who'd smuggled a tube of tennis balls up his jumper, and and sort of lobbed them on, or whether there were indeed 5 people who let's do it. I suspect if they did it again, they'd probably get a bit more reaction next time, because they're obviously not well chuffed at all, the Norwich fans. Gary Miles asks an interesting question. Given we've not really talked about Gelhardt, what's the chances of Leeds getting a bid for Joffy in January and recalling him to sell? A proven Championship goal scorer must attract interest. I think that's quite a perceptive question. Baz,
Yeah, I think
you
there's.
might have
I
some
think
insight.
I think there's concern that it might be difficult to get him back next summer, given his form. Obviously, you've got to factor in what the player wants, and we all know just how much Joe forced the move to Hull City this summer just gone. So I don't get the feeling. I had quite a lengthy conversation with the owner on Sunday afternoon. I don't get the feeling that there's too much concern for January. Obviously, every season-long loan deal does have a break clause in it. I would be surprised at this stage if Leeds look to activate that to bring him back to sell him. Look, if somebody comes in with £15 million for Leeds, you might have a decision. They might have a decision to make in January. But Joe wants to stay here. He loves it here. He's got no intention of trying to move elsewhere in January. So I think for the time being, at least, he's a Hull City player until the summer. What happens in the summer? Go on, Prutts.
Yeah, and without sounding too twee, and I totally get what the question is, but I would say, obviously, what we've seen from Joe second half of last season and now, this is possibly his most consistent spell as a younger player.
Very much so.
I understand that there might be a financial element of striking while the iron's hot when a player is in form, but. And again, I've never met Joe. I've only watched him from afar. And I really enjoy the way he plays football, and I hear a lot of good things about him. But I'd like to think in his head, again, without sounding too twee, that he's got a season here as a man that should have many, many seasons after this one to get what he wants from his career, just to really knuckle down. And again, not saying that he's never worked how he works his socks off, but knuckle down and think, right, I'm here for a year. This is my home for a year. Whether that ends up with City in the playoffs, City in mid-table, City in the top two, we shall soon see. But him playing well is mutually beneficial. He seems settled, and to think that there'd be any and going back to your point, Baz, doesn't strike me as someone that wants to force anything at this moment in time, because he looks like he's enjoying himself. He's playing really, really well, and he's one of the first names on the team sheet, really, isn't he? So, as I said, as a player whose career has been a bit stop-start, I think, at some decent football clubs, now is a nice portion of time where he can get a bank of game under his belts. Different conversation next summer, completely different conversation next summer, but right now, keep that Tiger shirt on and keep doing what he's doing.
He loves it. He absolutely loves it. He, as I said, we said in the summer that he made it clear at the back end of last season that this was where he wanted to come to, and that was before Jakurovic.
Yeah,
he's now playing every week. He's scoring. He's got 6 goals, 4 in 4. He's flying. He's playing every week. He's got his best mates, Charlie Hughes, Carl Joseph, around him. He's settled in the area. He absolutely loves it. He's got no ambition to want to leave Hull City, in January. So, as you say, Prutts, you're absolutely bang on. Let's worry about next summer. Focus on the here and now. And I don't see any situation in January. It's the caveat being, it's the transfer window. You never know. If Leeds suddenly get a mega offer that they think, actually, as a Premier League club, we can't, with huge resources and finance, even we can't turn that down, then we have a conversation. But at this stage, Leeds have got absolutely no plan to recall him, zero plan to recall him. Hull City want him. And as it stays right now, he's here for the duration until the end of the season. Then we cross that bridge when we come to it.
Question, Gary. Thank you for that. Shall I read a couple more? Oliver Harsley says to the 1904 club, Sergei is so refreshing to have as our manager, as he spots when things aren't working and immediately changes it, which then works out very well. We've shown that we can still churn out results despite our injury list, and have clearly got lots of momentum right now. And Jam says, I admire this team. I think this is a special bunch and I'd never rule them out. But these injuries are going to slow us down eventually. And not being able to do much, if anything, in January will probably see us fall away. But I wouldn't bet against this team or manager. Special, says Jam. Jam, thank you for that.
Kathryn, what's your kind of how do you assess City so far? How impressed have you been with the manager, the way he's adapted to English football, to Hull City, all the challenges that came in the summer, the work the club have done, Adjun, Jared, Martin Hodge, and everybody else behind the scenes that have put this squad together? and also the players who are, deserve a huge amount of credit for taking on board what the manager wants. And even with the injuries, it's next man up, and everybody's contributed, aren't they?
I'm going to go back to the summer when I was heavily criticised for being not very excited about the season ahead, and that was actually before the transfer embargo came in. So it actually got worse from that point. But the season had kind of not long finished, and basically, Baz, you made us try and be excited about a new season. We'd only just stayed up on goal difference, and I was finding it very difficult to find some hope and some joy. We had a manager that, look, the owner's record of appointing managers hadn't been great. We didn't know much about Sergei, other than we knew he'd done a decent job abroad. It was really difficult to know how he was going to do, and some people are glass half full, and some people are glass half empty. And at that day and at that point, I was glass half empty. And I don't mind admitting that maybe I should have been glass half full, because he's been a breath of fresh air. And as I say, look, the owner's got a mixed record in terms of the managers he's appointed, but he does seem to have found a gem in Sergei, because I just love the way he is. I think he's no nonsense, but he also plays entertaining football. I've liked watching them. There's been a few games, Watford and Blackburn at home, obviously, when they had illnesses and injuries, but I feel like the majority of the games have been entertaining to watch. And I've forgotten what it feels like to lose a game. We've gone 5 games unbeaten. I'm struggling to accept that we're going to have to lose another game at some point, because it feels so long since we kind of felt that sort of disappointment. Charlton the other week felt disappointing because they conceded late on, but before the game with the injuries and how well they've done, we probably would have taken a point. So I do feel like he's not afraid to admit when he's got something wrong, when he can change the formation, he's adaptable. And to be getting the results that he has done with the injury list, we kind of said before, what will they do if McBurney gets injured? And they've not lost a game since McBurney's been out. So I think you have to give him real credit. And so far, so good. And fair play to him.
Kathryn, it's 6 games unbeaten.
6 games. Where did the other game go from? God, I can't count even. That's even worse.
Lost at Watford, and then came from behind to draw with Preston, beat Sheffield United.
I always forget about that Preston game, because that was quite bad in the first half. Sort of really blocked it out. 6 games unbeaten. It's even better.
1 defeat and 8. Prutts, I'm reluctant to harp back too much to last season, because we're kind of ticking off all the achievements as we go this season. But just as a quick reminder, City got 49 points last season. They're already on 22. They scored 44 goals last season. They've already scored 22. There's 33 games of the season left, and they're almost not far off half the amount of points they got in the entirety of last season. So that just goes to show what a turnaround it's been. Obviously, we know the home form. Last season, they won 5 at home all season. It took them until Christmas to win their second game. They've already won 4 at home. They've won the last 2 away from home for the first time since, the start of the year. Everything they're doing is exceptional, isn't it? Given the backdrop of the summer and the injuries that he's had to cope with. So it is a collective, and it's not just about the manager, it's about the collective, but it is incredible, isn't it?
It is, and you're right. Then you say about achievements. There's again, using that term loosely. There's nothing achieved as yet. They're doing better. The team looks to be responding to a different style of coaching. I hesitate to use the word better coaching, because the men that were in last season have coached at different places to different and varying degrees of success. I think the mood shifted given the temperament of the manager, the standard of players, and the pedigree both on the pitch and off the pitch of the players that they brought in has helped. They've brought some real personality in. Players have played better, which, again, without being too blunt and cynical about it, for a long period of last year, they woefully underperformed. And whether that was Tim Bolter's fault, whether that was Ruben Sellers' fault, depending on the strength of the player, it's different for different reasons. We heard kind of the opinion of players when Tim had left that things had changed somewhat, which again, as a 44-year-old former pro, you're a bit kind of cynical about. You very boring that you get paid to do your job, and for large parts of last season. What City gave out as a playing staff wasn't anywhere near good enough. Held on by the skin of the teeth. And as Kathryn says, as you're trying to give it the glass half full one going into this season, they didn't get relegated by dint of the fact that there were three worst teams on the final day of the season. Backed off over the course of what was a poor season. So that's not me being too kind of down on what we're doing. I think it's a wonderful thing to see. And when you look at what the team is doing now and what the club's doing now, and also as well to a point, it justifies Ajun's responsibility and want for his football club. We've questioned him for changing managers because of style of football, but I mean, bloody hell, it's worked, hasn't it? They're playing football that's genuinely exciting the fans. You talk about the results at home. How long have we spoken about City at the MKM and that disparity between what the fans want and what the fans are seeing and what's been produced on the pitch, and almost a hint of boredom from fans turn up thinking, wow, we're going to try and pass you the team to death that way, but not have a shot. Which, and that's me oversimplifying. Much more educated footballing men than me, but I can still watch a football match and be bored by it. I can watch a football match and be entertained by it. You look at what City did on the break against Norwich at Carrow Road. Brilliant. We no matter where Norwich are, you still go there and think, well, we've got to sit in for a little bit. We'll have to absorb a little bit of pressure. Kathryn said, get the ball back straight away and let's defend for 45 minutes. It worked to a degree. And again, that's simplifying it. But I think broadly what you're seeing right now, even when we're talking about a team with injuries that's not at full strength and a squad that's not at full strength, things are working very, very, very well indeed, aren't they? The chemistry of the team is seemingly correct. Sergei, again, we go back to the charisma of the man, but he seems very comfortable in his own skin, doesn't he? With regards to how he deals with the media, how he deals with the players, how he deals with the ownership, how he talks to the fans. Tim was a bit combative. Ruben was so laser focused that it was almost, and again, when I saw him at the start of this season, looking at the Sheffield United fans, that wasn't a confrontational thing. That was him and how absolutely inside that job he was and how inside the job he was at Hull City, almost too wound up in it to get a sense of objectivity. Whereas Sergei just seems a little bit more composed, a little bit more naturally predisposed to being a leader in a club and a team that has aspirations of being in the top half, but hasn't shown that over the last year or so. So, yeah, without wanting to sound a negative to the point you're making, Baz, I totally get where you're going. But again, achievements and what they've done so far, they've done great. But we don't want to be sat here in April going, well, it was good, wasn't it, just before Christmas? But again, it's a mid-table type thing.
Yeah. Burnsy, you've got some. We put a question out on social media after the game on Saturday, which I think is a reasonable question to ask at this stage of the season. And that was, given we're now 13 games into the season, City are seventh in the league, only outside the top six on goal difference. They've won 4 of the last 6 unbeaten, 1 defeat in 8. Second top scorers in the league, only behind Coventry. Are they genuine at this stage playoff contenders? What are the fans saying about that, Burnsy? Before we get everybody here, their thoughts.
Well, we'll start with Tiger Beck 90, who says, if we can keep this momentum, real cohesion on the pitch within the coaching team, and within the coaching team, it would seem the only part which could hinder us would be injuries. Does this create a stronger business case to look at the infrastructure in terms of the training ground and facilities? Well, if you listen back to last week's 1904 Club, we do talk about training ground and infrastructure and facilities. Baz telling us what he knows on that. So have a listen back. You can always do that, Tiger Beck 90. And Al Kilvo, who owns Goff and Davy, the music shop. Don't worry, Al, we'll not send you a bill for that mention. But he's a lovely bloke and a member of the Two Pianos, really talented musician, big City fan, says, got to say, as first choice players return, I really fancy us. Thank you for that, Al. This one from Paul Harper. Yes, we are playoff contenders. We're absolutely ravaged with injuries to our key players, but this squad has stepped up to the mark without getting overly confident. Both Derby and Pompey are winnable games. I doff my cap to Sergei Yakirovich. There are more. I'll read more as we go along.
Kathryn?
Goff Davy, what a shop that! I mean, I used to love having a nosy in there on a Saturday morning back in the day. I mean, God forbid my dad ever bought me anything from there because me and him are tight sods. But it was a great place to go and hang out and kind of aspirations of thinking that you were going to be an Oasis at some stage, but obviously never came to fruition.
You've just gone for the Liam Gallagher
the
facial
haircut
look,
Yeah. You've got that, and now, Al, if you are listening, and I do listen to you, I know you listen to the 1904 Club because you've sent us a message. You will get a bill from us because Prutts has mentioned you as well there. So moving on.
Just to reiterate, it was Goff and Davy in town, wasn't it? Goff and Davy, the music place. Goff and Davy, everyone.
Well, I say I bought a piano. Someone bought me a piano from there when I was.
From there, Kathryn. Where's there?
Goff and Davy, the one in the centre of Hull.
The only and best music shop in Hull, Goff and Davy, yeah.
But Kathryn, on that then, not Goff
On the
and
piano.
Davy.
On that, then, can you play us a tune?
To be fair, the club have got a pianist before games. He may have got his piano from Goff and Davy. It's very enjoyable too. Say again.
A pianist? You mean a pianist?
Pianist, that's the word. Yeah, sorry, it's Monday morning. It's been a long week now.
And don't say pianist too quick on a Monday morning.
Imagine what would come up if we had subtitles on this show.
Oh dear.
Moving on.
Dear. We have a laugh.
Try and wrestle it back, Baz. Come on. Goff and Davy, come on.
Kathryn, are they challengers or not?
I mean, yes, I think they are. The only caveat is that I think you're only ever 2 or 3 wins away in the championship, realistically, from sort of seeing the playoffs. I think the division can change so quickly. I'm really surprised at how poor the 3 relegated teams have been. And I know Ipswich won at the weekend. I expect at least one of them to sort of sort of come back up. There's teams like West Brom that are a bit lower down than when people maybe expect them to be. I was at Leicester women's game yesterday, and I was talking to Rick Passmore, he's worked a bit in
from Notts County, yeah.
Great guy. I was talking to him about Hull for the first 5 minutes. The other guy there trying to get answers about the Leicester women's game was probably thinking, what's going on here? But he was, I was talking to him about it, and I said, oh yeah, the 3 relegated team's been terrible. And then I realised where I was. That I was sort of stood in Leicester City's at the King Power in the tunnel. Thought, oh, sorry about that. But like, City have beat Leicester. Obviously still got to beat. We've beaten Southampton. They've still got to play Ipswich. Southampton have sacked Will Still. So I do think there'll be a lot of change, but at the minute, absolutely, why not? They're playing well enough. They're in good form. They look confident. It just depends how long they can keep this going for. What happens with injuries and things like that? What might happen in January? But the way the championship is, it's just such a weird division, and we seem to say it every season that so much can change. And teams that can, struggle at the start, if they put a bit of a run together, can lift themselves back up. So I do think we're still at the stage where you're never too far. You kind of, not to sound like the old football cliche, but you don't get too high and you don't get too low because it can change so quickly.
That's the thing, because the results at the weekend with obviously, I know Coventry are a bit further ahead, but Borough getting pumped 3-0 at Watford. They're only 3 points off second. But that's the thing, isn't it? You could lose at Derby and then, I don't know, lose against Portsmouth and suddenly you're out of it. You're down in 12th, and going into the international break, the feeling is very different. It is so concertina. I think Derby are 17th, 5 points adrift to City. So if they have a good week and City have a bad week, they overtake City's. Plus, that is the championship, isn't it? But from your point of view, given where they are in the league at this stage, we're still early, very early, obviously. But do you think they are, from what you've seen so far and you've seen of the wider league itself, do you think they are contenders for the top 6?
I would have to say right now, yeah. I got asked the other week whether Coventry were contenders for finishing in the top 2, and you looked obviously at the table and the fact that at that time they're unbeaten, and you've got to say, yeah, the body of work, of course, is judged at the end of a season whether that ends up in the top 6 or in the top 2. But from what I've seen so far, we're waiting on the consistency. Is going back to Kathryn's point of what the relegated sides do, and we're waiting longer than perhaps we thought we would. I think what else you'd look at with regards to the division, and it's something that a lot of people say, there's no Leeds, there's no Burnley, there's no team that's kind of come down and just got straight back on with it to show that there is a disparity between the Premier League and the Championship. And given the size of the clubs that are loitering around the bottom half of the table, they've got a hell of a lot of work to do to make sure that come the turn of the year, that when you are looking towards the end of the season, those bigger names, with a great suspect to City, are going to be up there in the shout for the top 6. But what City are operating under, and it is given the fact of what we saw last season, there's lack of expectation from the broader footballing community, I think, because they look at City hanging on for dear life last year and just doing it. And then you look at the other teams that are up there in the top 6 with Stoke, Millwall, Bristol City and Preston. Nobody thought Preston would have been there. We saw what Bristol City did last season, but a huge disparity between where they finished and where Sheffield United finished, even though they both played each other in the playoffs. Millwall are a bit of an unknown entity when it comes to the end of the season, carve up in the top 6. And Stoke with Mark Robbins is just a really good fit. They showed emphatically the weekend what they're about. But biting on the heels of City are big football teams. Charlton back at this level for the first time in a while. Ipswich, Watford, Birmingham we thought would be in a bit of a hurry to get through the Championship. They've seen how tough it is. And then, I mean, I'm naming all the teams now. There are so many big teams behind City. Yes. And again, I'm trying to say this without sounding condescending to what City are, because a lot of these teams in this debate, Hull City have been in the Premier League in a short space of time in recent history, haven't they? And a lot of teams knocking around in the Championship. So right now, I do, and it's not getting carried away, nor kind of boxing off what the rest of the season is going to look like. But they've got to believe it. At what stage? What would their purpose be to say, well, we're doing all right now, but it's probably going to tail off? They've got to be thinking that because of the amount of games that we've seen so far. Yes, it's not a half a season that we've seen, but we've seen enough of the Championship to think that the ones that need to come good will probably come good. But there's nothing that City have come against, I think, that would terrify them by any stretch of the imagination.
Benji, before I come to you, you look at the 3 promoted clubs, Ipswich, yes, are doing the better. And they've got that game in hand at Blackburn early next month. But there's talk about Kieran McKenna. He's been linked with the Celtic job. Obviously, Southampton have had a terrible start, lost the last 3. Will still sacked on Sunday. Leicester also lost the last 3, of which one of those was, of course, to Hull City. Marty Cifuentes probably doesn't see Christmas either. So there's so many variables. Obviously, Sheffield United have had a desperate start to the season. They then bring back Chris Wilder. You think that's going to kickstart them. City beat them. Then they get pumped. They win a game. Then they lose a couple of games. Then they get thumped at home to Derby on Saturday. They can't get out of it. And we saw last season with City, once you're in that bottom 4 or 5, even if it's early, it's very hard to get out of it. You're starting to chase your tail. You're not playing well. Other teams that you're playing have got momentum. And Burnsy, City are unbeaten in 6 games. We've called on them. We early in the run. Every time they've won a game, we're like, can they put a run together? Something they never did last season. Can they get a bit of momentum? And they've got that momentum now, haven't they? 4 wins in 6 and 2 draws. You know, the draw that started that was they were 2-0 down at half time and looked completely out of it. They come back and get a point, and suddenly they go on and win 3 in a row. Then they almost look like they're going to beat Charlton, concede late. Then they respond by going to Norwich and doing something that no Hull City manager in the last 15 years has done. So you've got to consider them in that conversation.
They're definitely in the conversation. The way they're going and the way he's pulled it together and what he's getting out of the squad and the squad they actually recruited. There's been a change in mindset. They're much more robust than they were, and in the conversation. Just let me read some of the messages coming into the 1904 Club on this subject. Trigger says, if we can stay in touch pending Matazo, Balumi and Miller and Ollie come into full fitness and action, then yes, we'll be in the playoffs or there or thereabouts, I think. Jake Fuller says, if we're producing wins with the amount of injuries we have, would you say the sky's the limit when we have a fully fit and firing squad, or at least a majority? Plus, Slater has been a revelation since he's come back this season. Not mentioned Regan Slater, but he's right. Is Jake Fuller? He's been excellent. He's back to his energetic best for me. You may want to comment on that in a minute. And Tiger Delic says, I don't see why not. We can't be in the playoff picture. This squad for Tiger Delic is very similar to that of 07-08. lots of different players playing the part, many different goal scorers. I think with JB's goal on Saturday, that's up to 10 different scorers now this
Yeah.
season. Credit to the coaches for bringing the best out of the players that had struggled last season. I've got some more. I'll come back to them as we head towards the conclusion of the programme. We've still got 15 minutes to get them in.
So Derby away on Tuesday night then, and then Portsmouth at home on Saturday. Differing form of those. Derby, having had a poor start to the season, I think it's fair to say, have won the last 3, 2 at home and then winning at Bramall Lane. Portsmouth have lost the last 3 and face what looks a really difficult game, Kathryn, at home to Wrexham on Wednesday night. So City will have an extra 24 hours of recovery time, which, given players out, is important. We'll touch on the injuries as well in terms of where we're at with those. But the next 2 games, Kathryn, the Derby one looks particularly difficult, historically strong at Pride Park, particularly under John Eustace, who seems to have got things going. Obviously, Sheffield United forgot that Carter Morris was in the team, set up to forget that Carter Morris played and allow Carter Morris to score his first career hat-trick on Saturday. How do you see that game at Pride Park? And I guess the fact that City have won the first game of the week almost in some ways takes the pressure off. They can, you don't want to lose, obviously, because you want to keep it going. But a point, it feels like at the outset, a point would be a very good return given the fact they've already won at Norwich. And I know we keep coming back to it, the narrative, but the lack of availability of so many players.
Yeah, I think it's a strange one with Derby because I feel like you're not 100% sure what to expect from them, because I don't think they're a bad side and I think they've got a decent manager, but they have kind of been up and down and they've kind of been struggling to build consistency until this kind of run of 3 games that they've had, and you don't want to kind of be too like, oh yeah, we'll take a point there. Obviously, that I'm sure the team will be going there thinking they can build on Norwich and go and get a win. But it is tricky when the games start to come thick and fast at this point in the year and this point of the season. With you just kind of try to get through the games without picking up any other injuries. I mean, there was a point in the first half where Gelhardt was really limping, and I thought, don't you dare, you get up. You can't be limping now. It was quite a bad tackle, actually. I think it might have even been Schlupp that got him. I think he got a yellow card, and it was kind of like he was limping for a few minutes. And I thought, oh my God, if he's down as well, like we really are going to be the walking wounded. But thankfully, he was fine. But yeah, I mean, out of the 2, the Portsmouth game looks like the Championship doesn't always go that way, and we know that. But out of the 2 at the minute, Portsmouth at home looks like the game you're targeting as the win, and then. If you get a point at Derby, you probably say, it's not the end of the world. But it is going to be a tough one. I think they are strong. Pride Park's a difficult place to go, especially now they've had the pitch relayed, as you found out last Tuesday when you were there watching England. But yeah, I think 2 games before the international break, you'd take 4 points from them and then try and get some of the players back from injury.
Yeah, I loved watching the Lionesses. I didn't love my surroundings. I hated it, I'm not going to lie. But anyway, less said about that, the better. Prutts, how do you see Derby this season, the Eustace? Obviously, he kept them up last season, battling against City. Obviously, won at the MKM with that Craig Forsyth winner 5 minutes from time, but a very different situation this season. And Carter Morris, their talisman and clearly a very, very astute signing in the summer on a free transfer. And his first career hat-trick at Bramall Lane.
Well, I mean, yeah, but if you look at the goals at Bramall Lane, my word, that there was a more than a helping hand, wasn't there? Let's be honest. From the home side, he like you say, if you're looking for that first career hat-trick, then you want a game like that where the defending was inept to try and be nice about it. Yeah, and it goes back to what you were saying, Baz, about teams getting stuck in certain portions of the table. I'm not saying for 1 second Derby are, given the fact that they found themselves 8 points above the bottom 3, but they were in that block down at the bottom, like City were, that couldn't seemingly punch their way out with any form of clarity. So you'd probably look at where they are this season and label it as a slowish start, given what John is capable of with that particular side. Maybe this turns a corner with Carlton getting the goals. And from Pompey's point of view, another team that's down below far below where City are, hovering around just above the bottom 3. So I think going back to what the question was about City's potential playoff credentials, then it's games like this that are won, not necessarily where you dominate, but they're won in the dark days of November and December that build those points that get you to where you are at the end of the season. And I think you're looking at 2 games that are imminently winnable. Absolutely. Like you say, maybe there is that element of a bit of pressure off getting your work done early on the Saturday leading up to these off the back of a 3-game week. Sorry. But yeah, plenty to be wary of, but nothing remotely to be concerned about. We thought that with City going into, did we chat before the Leicester game, wondering what was going to happen and looking at it? And I'd like to think that if you build on what we've seen in this run of form, then they'll be more confident now than there would have been 6 games ago going into these. So why the hell not get a maximum return?
Burnsy, Pride Park, a bit like Carrow Road, not been the happiest hunting ground for the Tigers in the last few years. The last win at Pride Park back in the Championship playoff semi-final in 2016. So, it's not dissimilar to Norwich, and lost 4 or 5 recently. But this is a Hull City team that will be going there completely organised, completely at ease with what they're being asked to do, and crucially, full of confidence. And anything on the back of winning on Saturday, anything away in midweek is a massive return, isn't it? Going into Saturday against a Pompey team that are really struggling. They were thumped 4-0 at Birmingham at the weekend, one away win all season, lost the last 3, and as I say, not the easiest game at home to Wrexham, who obviously themselves buoyed by winning on Friday night, coming from behind. So to beat Coventry, so these are 2 good games for City, aren't they, going into the break, which is going to be so important.
Yeah, exactly. No reason why they can't win both, but equally, the Championship, if you're not at it, you can lose both. I'd just like to see them put sort of 2 halves together. Yeah. In terms of dominate whole game, 2 halves, it would be nice to see. Maybe I'm asking too much. Just let me read some of the messages, because people have been good enough to send them to the 1904 Club. Gary Cushney says, City have become a side this season with a plan A, B and C, along with a coaching team not frightened of changing the plan during the game. I think that's a fair point. Well made, Gary. Dan Adamson says, we have an excellent aura in inverted commas, within the team. And that is what was driving us to the results that we're achieving. It sounds like a yoga workshop, doesn't it? Or a wellness thing. We've got an excellent aura, but I know what you mean, Dan. Even when we make our substitutions, the changes who might play a bit part minutes contribute to the result. Indeed, JB coming on and scoring his first goal on Saturday is evidence of that, Dan. And I just on him, because I thought when he played against Charlton, he didn't get into the box. He got in good positions outside the box and didn't continue his runs into the box. On Saturday against Norwich, whether somebody had a word or whatever, he got in the box and he got his reward by getting the goal. And Dan concludes, I believe once the missing players return, we have a chance of the playoffs. And Taylor Bedford says, can you get your research team, blimey Baz, that's you then, to find out how much hotels near Wembley are? I don't want to go all Trivago on you, Taylor, but Isles used to do this. You can book your Wembley hotels with a cancellation policy, and you might have to pay some money up front, but you'll get your money back. So it's worth doing. If you've got the courage of your convictions and you've got a few quid in your bank account, Taylor, you could go early, my son, and get that sorted. John says, I think we've been, here's a sort of counterbalance to this. I think we've been a bit lucky over the past few games overall, but also missing half our starting 11. If we can get our best team out and sharpen up at the back, top 6 is definitely possible. Well, you need a bit of luck, don't you? They've had a bit of luck, They had a bit of luck on Saturday if Norwich had taken the chances. And Ad Evo on that side point says, I hate to be the one to say it, but if any of our recent opponents had taken the chances, the table would look very different. We're finding a way to win, but giving away a boatload of chances every game. It's finding the balance, but they're taking the chances, as you said earlier. Only Coventry have scored more. It's how they are. They're quite an open side. It's entertaining to watch.
But I accept that, and I think there have been moments in games where they've rode the luck at times. But name me a team that are successful that don't have to ride their luck at times, especially in this league, because it is so even. Jurkovic always says it's 50-50. Every game is 50-50. He's right. you have to accept that other teams are going to create. Perhaps on Saturday they were too open, but I would also counter that by saying they should have had at least one penalty when Harry Darling's arm was out here and Louis Cole crossed it and the referee didn't give it. The goalkeeper handled the ball outside the penalty area. He didn't give it. Carl Joseph robbed Shane Duffy inside right, channel inside the penalty area. Should have rolled it across to Darko JB at the back post. Didn't. Muffled the shot and it was saved. So City themselves are creating some really good opportunities that they're not taking. So yes, other teams are creating against them, and at times City are riding their luck. But I would also argue that other teams are riding their luck against City, perhaps because they've not got McBurney up front, or they're not being clinical in front of goal. You know, that game on Saturday should have been out of sight long before the 87th minute when JB, you know, he fudged the first effort and he needed the second bite of the cherry to put it in the back of the net. So they are creating, and I thought the referee Josh Smith was generous to Norwich in the second half, because there was another penalty shout as well when Gelhardt was fouled right after he scored the first goal. He went through again and he was clipped. I don't know why he'd go down, because he's one-on-one with the goalkeeper. So there's a case in that second half for two penalties and the goalkeeper clearly handling the ball outside in the D. It wasn't difficult to see. Everybody saw it apart from the referee. So, you know, yes, that's a fair point. Kathryn, quickly on Pompey, it has the banana skin feel about it, but again, you come back to this feels and has felt at times like a different City this season. That what's gone before, the typical City syndrome, has been shaken at times. It will always be there, and it may well come, and it probably will come back to bite at some point because it's the Championship. But, you know, if they can get that job done against Portsmouth for going to the break, get the likes of Lundstrom, Bellumi, you know, hopefully get McBurney back and then eat into Miller as well and one or two others, that's important, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, Sergei seems to be finding a way to banish the demons and the curses of the teams that we haven't won against for quite a while. My question, Baz, was going to be, do you think he sticks with the back five? Because he obviously started a back five against Charlton, sort of people were unsure as to whether he should have done. And then started a back four against Norwich. I assume Ajayi still coming back from injury, with Derby coming up, a 3-game week. He probably felt like he couldn't start all 3 games, and that's why he was on the bench. But we did look a lot better when he came on, and it went to a back five against Norwich. I guess maybe it depends on the opponent in terms of, you know, whether he plays it at Derby and whether he would play it against Portsmouth. But do you think because of how much better they were in the second half, he keeps that against Derby, or do you think he goes back to a back four?
I think he'll keep it. I think Ajayi was rested at Norwich with the view, with, like you say, with Derby in mind. So I think definitely Ajayi starts at Derby. So I think he'll go 3 centre halves with Coyle and Gilo, who, by the way, has been exceptional. He was in a really bad first half. Gilo was probably the best player, but yeah, as wing back. So I would expect that. Yeah. I
think the wing backs, I think it suits Giles even more as well, because it gives him more freedom to get further forward, which is where you want him higher up the pitch than sort of, you know, having to do more defending. But then the midfield looks interesting, because I thought Regan Slater, as Burnsy mentioned earlier, was holding it together on the first half on Saturday, and if it hadn't been for him, I think, you know, there was nothing really in that midfield. It changed in the second half when the formation switched, but I quite like the back five.
Benji, before we finish, Prutts, just on Pompey, forget whatever happens at Derby happens. But in terms of Pompey, there was a home draw last season. Obviously, Volta came out after the game and criticised the fans, and he was sacked the following game. That is, you talked about it earlier on about going away in the Championship and needing to keep the points tally ticking over at this time of the year. That is exactly what they need to do Saturday, isn't it? Against a team that, away from home, have got a low on confidence. City at home are really confident going, and it's the final game going into that 2-week break before QPR.
Yeah, and it's a great chance, as you say. Gives them momentum to go into the break, to get players back ready and raring to go off the back of that final international break of the year, and up against a Pompey side that is capable of causing City problems, but is also in a position where they're vulnerable to what City are very, very good at, given going back to what we said about the vibes around the place, very positive from City's point of view. They'll be looking at a Pompey game as one they should be winning. As you say, you never get the Derby game, see where you're off the back of that. But I think given where Pompey find themselves, what they've done so far since being back in the Championship, then City have absolutely got to be going in and attacking this one.
Yeah. Burnsy, before we finish, anything else to add? Any more comments?
I was just going to say, I've always liked the 5-3-2. I think it works better away from home for City on the counter. It suits them there. Couple of messages to the 1904 club. Carl Foster, there's always somebody who's really practical. Get to 50 points, please, first, then let's see what we can do the summer of chaos. Goes of posers, they're resilient and passionate and graft for each other. You can't buy that. It's created, developed and built on trust. Team spirit is immense, which showed in the adulation when that second goal went in on Saturday. Sergei's building something special. Up the Tigers, says Tiger Door.
Fitting way to finish for this episode of the 1904 Club. If you're heading to Pride Park on Tuesday, do have your pre-match jabs and just be really careful. Kathryn, thanks very much for joining us today.
I kind of want to know where Prutts went when he stood up when I was talking, and then he left and came back.
I
did really well to keep my composure during that.
You did. Normally Burnsy would shoot me down for getting up and cane me. What made me giggle and I knew made you laugh was when he just said, what did he say? Was it not Rodney? It was Trigger. You just said
Trigger.
We've had a message in from Trigger. Said it's so deadpan, like it's the most normal thing in the world. Yeah. But a message in from Trigger saying, "Hello, Dave. Thank you very much. Moving swiftly on."
Trigger says, "You can't park there, Dave." Cheers. Right, Burnsy, thanks very much. I'll see you in the at the Sheep Dip tomorrow night.
Will do. Looking forward to it.
And as always, Prutts, it's been a pleasure, old son.
Loved it, and long may this wonderful run that Kathryn can't count on continue.
In my defence, there's an international break after Preston. That's why I forgot. So I forgot everything before the international break. That's why I'm only thinking of 5 games.
I need to speak to my old chum Mike White, because he was trying to work out a week or so ago Matt Crooks' appearances, and he got it all wrong. So I sent him my abacus. So I'll see if he's finished with it, and I'll forward it on to you.
Thanks.
Right. That's it, everybody. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks for listening, and your comments as always. Keep them coming into the 1904 Club, and we will see you again soon. Up those Tigers.